Hey guys, MJ Madness here, and baseball season is right around the corner. MLB opening day kicks off tomorrow, so I thought I'd go ahead and make a preview video. So basically, what I'm going to be doing in this video is breaking down all 6 divisions and giving you my predictions as to how I think the standings are going to end up. Also, at the end of the video, I will be giving you my picks for the World Series. So without further ado, let's get things started in the American League. First off, one of the most competitive divisions in baseball, the American League East. Coming in at number 5 and at the bottom of the division, I'm going with the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, the Rays have really struggled this past couple of seasons, and I don't see things turning around for them this year. At number 4, I'm going with the New York Yankees. Now, the Yankees definitely have a solid squad, but I don't think they'll make much noise in a very tough division. At number 3, I'm going with the Baltimore Orioles. Now, I know the Orioles made the playoffs last year, but they definitely got a little lucky, and I don't trust that pitching rotation. Even though Manny Machado remains one of the better players in baseball, I don't think they have what it takes to make the playoffs this year. At number 2 and snagging a wildcard spot, I'm going with the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, I know losing Edwin Encarnacion will hurt a lot, but definitely Morales should be able to replace a lot of that hitting, and they definitely have a very good team with Donaldson leading them off. So overall, I think the Blue Jays should have enough to get in as a wildcard spot this season. And as number 1 in the division, winning it for a second consecutive year, I'm going with the Boston Red Sox. Now, the Red Sox remain one of the best teams in the American League, and the addition of Chris Sale has made their pitching one of the best in baseball, if not the best. They definitely should make some noise, and definitely look for them to go far in the postseason. Next up, the American League Central. Coming in at number 5, I'm going with the Chicago White Sox as to who I see ending up at the bottom of this division. Now, the White Sox already weren't very good, and by trading away arguably their best player in Chris Sale, they will be even worse this season. Now, while they definitely have some nice pieces and look to be building towards the future, this year may be rough for fans of the White Sox. At number 4, I'm going with the Kansas City Royals. My, how the mighty have fallen. This was the team that won this World Series only 2 years ago, but definitely they've lost some key additions to that team, and overall they've just really taken some steps back. They're definitely trying to hang on to contention, but I think this is the end of a great run for the Kansas City Royals. At number 3, I'm going with the Minnesota Twins. Now, the Twins were the worst team in baseball last season, but they've definitely made some moves, their young players have developed, and I think they'll take some great steps forward and really progress this year, and I see them ending up 3rd in the division. At number 2, I'm going with the Detroit Tigers. Now, the Tigers really are in no man's land, in that they're a solid enough team not to be at the bottom of the league and getting a good draft pick, but they're always going to be right on that playoff bubble, but never really enough to take it to the next level. Now, Justin Verlander's definitely really good, but they need to round out the rest of their roster, and while I definitely see them being around 80 wins this year, I don't think they'll have enough to get it done and get over the hump and make the postseason. And at number 1, the reigning World Series finalists, the Cleveland Indians. Now, I think this division is Cleveland's to lose. They really are head and shoulders above the other 4 mediocre teams in this division, and the addition of Edwin Encarnacion should make this squad even better. Definitely look for the Indians to go back to contending for the World Series this year. And finally, to finish up the American League, we have the American League West. At number 5, I'm going with the Oakland Athletics. Now, not only could the A's end up in the bottom of this division, but I could definitely see them ending up near the bottom of Major League Baseball as well. This roster really doesn't have much talent, and I predict a really tough year for the Oakland Athletics. At number 4, I'm going with the Los Angeles Angels. Now, they have Mike Trout, who is no doubt the best player in baseball, but what they have managed to do is build an absolutely terrible roster around him. Now, Mike Trout alone will make sure this team stays out of the bottom of the division, but they definitely need more talent and to build around him to make the Angels actually compete for the playoffs. They definitely have potential, but management really needs to step up and start building a team around Mike Trout. At number 3, perhaps my first big surprise pick of this episode, I am going with the Texas Rangers. And no, I don't think they'll make the playoffs. Now, the Texas Rangers had the most wins in the American League last season, but I don't think the Texas Rangers have enough to even make the postseason this year. Now, this definitely may come as a shock to you, but I just think they got pretty lucky last year. A lot of teams in their division have taken some steps forward, while they really haven't gone anywhere, and I think they'll be among the most disappointing teams for this season. And at number 2, my pick for the breakout team in the MLB, at least one of them, I am going with the Seattle Mariners, and I think they'll snag a wild card spot and make the postseason. Now, the Mariners have always been on the bubble, and they made some really savvy moves this offseason that I think will put this team over the edge, and finally they will end the longest playoff drought in the MLB. And at number 1 in this division, another team that I think will break out, the Houston Astros. Now, this team has so much talent, and definitely the 3 years in a row of being the worst team in baseball in the early 2010s has finally paid off, as they've really developed some solid talent, Carlos Correa probably being the best among them, and I think the Astros finally will step up this year and be able to win the division. Moving over to the National League, up first we have the National League East. At number 5 in this division, I'm going with the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the Phillies definitely are a rebuilding team. They're looking towards the future, and they're just not quite ready to compete yet. Moving on to number 4, another team that's just not quite ready to compete, I'm going with the Atlanta Braves. Now, the Braves have that nice fancy new stadium, SunTrust Field, that definitely looks like it's going to be one of the best in baseball, but the team playing in that stadium just isn't quite ready. Freddie Freeman looks like an awesome piece to build around, and they're really stockpiling young players and look like a force to be reckoned with a few years down the road. At number 3, I'm going with the Miami Marlins. Now, this is a team in the middle. Definitely that tragedy with Jose Fernandez really set this team back, and I'm not sure they'll be able to recover from that this season. At number 2, and snagging the wildcard spot, I am going with the New York Mets. Now, the Mets are a really great team. They still have most of the pieces from the team that narrowly lost the World Series 2 years ago, and I think they'll be a team that should be able to make the playoffs as the wild card, and they will be pushing the Washington Nationals all season. Now, these two will be battling for first and second in the division, two very good squads, and I could definitely see it going either way. But I just trust the Nationals more, which is why in number 1, I am going with the Washington Nationals. I just think they have a better rotation. Bryce Harper remains one of the best players in baseball, even if he is inconsistent, and I think the Nationals will be able to narrowly edge out the Mets for first in this division. Next up, we have the National League Central. At 5th in this division, I'm going with the Cincinnati Reds. Now, I don't really see what direction the Cincinnati Reds are taking, and I think this should be a pretty tough year for them. Joey Votto is a great player, but they haven't been able to build around him, and there's no real talent on the squad other than him. At number 4, I'm going with the Milwaukee Brewers, another team in the middle. They're definitely trying to retool and contend, but they really don't have enough talent on that squad to make much noise in this division. And at number 3, I'm going with the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, I think the Cardinals are a dark horse team. I don't trust them enough to put them in the playoffs, but I definitely could see them surprising a couple people, and I think they should definitely be challenging for a spot in the postseason. And at number 2, another team I see challenging for a spot in the postseason, but I think they will fall just short. I am going with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, the Pirates made the postseason not last year, but the year before that, and they definitely still have some pretty key pieces of that team, and I definitely think they'll be close and on that bubble for much of the season. In the end, though, Andrew McCutchen has really just taken some steps back. They're an older team, and I think they're not going to have what it takes to get it done in a tough National League. And finally, in number 1, perhaps the best team in baseball, at least on paper, the Chicago Cubs. This team won the World Series, and I think they will be back and better than ever this year. The Cubs remain absolutely stacked at every position. They are so deep everywhere, and I think they should challenge once again for the World Series and definitely be the favorites going into the year. Finally, we have the National League West. At the bottom of this division at number 5, I am going with the San Diego Padres, and I also predict this team will be the worst in Major League Baseball at the end of this season. The Padres just don't have any skill on this roster, and they definitely need to make a change and start building up their prospect pool because currently things look very bleak in San Diego. At number 4, I'm going with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, this team could be decent and everything goes right, but I just don't think they have what it takes to get it done this year. Paul Goldschmidt remains very solid, but he's really not getting recognized enough in the desert with a very poor team over the past couple of seasons. At number 3, I am going with the Colorado Rockies. Now, a lot of people have the Rockies pegged as a breakout team for this upcoming season, and I think led by Nolan Arenado, they should hit a lot of home runs. And while I definitely think they'll break out and have a really great season, against the Giants and Dodgers at the top of this division, I don't think they have what it takes to get a playoff spot, though I definitely think they'll take some big steps forward this year. And number 2, and snagging the wild card, I am going with the San Francisco Giants. Now, much like the National League East, I predict this division to be a dogfight between two very good teams at the top, the Giants and the Dodgers. And while both have their fair share of very good talents, I just trust the Dodgers a little bit more, which is why I see the Giants ending up as second in the division, though they should be able to snag the wild card spot. And of course, at number 1, I am going with the LA Dodgers. This is another team that looks really, really good. Definitely among the best in baseball, and could be a sleeper pick to win the World Series. They're very stacked, have some really top-end talent, and should definitely make some noise this year. Now, to end things off as promised, my predictions for the playoffs and my World Series pick. So just to recap, the teams I see making the playoffs out of the American League are the Cleveland Indians, the Houston Astros, the Seattle Mariners, the Boston Red Sox, and the Toronto Blue Jays. Coming out of the National League, I am predicting the Washington Nationals, the New York Mets, the Chicago Cubs, the LA Dodgers, and the San Francisco Giants to be your playoff teams. And finally, for who I think will play in the World Series, a lot of people are going to be going with the Cubs, the Red Sox, the Indians, the Dodgers. And while I think all 4 of those teams definitely have a shot, here at MJ Madness, we like to think outside of the box. And so my dark horse pick, and who I think will be competing in the World Series, is the Houston Astros and the Washington Nationals. Now, these two teams are very sleeper picks, but I think they have the talent to go all the way. And while they haven't had much success the past couple of seasons, I predict them both to break out and meet up in the World Series. And as for who I think will win between these two teams, I think it will be a very tight matchup. Both teams are very solid, but in the end, I give the edge to the Houston Astros. So my pick for the 2017 World Series is the Houston Astros will be your 2017 World Series champions, and I predict them defeating the Washington Nationals. But let me know down in the comment section below, who is your way too early pick for the World Series? And let me know whether or not you agree with my predictions, and leave yours down in the comment section. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and take care.